Welcome to our new video. In this video we are going to talk about iPhone 14 Pro. So let's get started. New iPhones are finally here, and this is the compact yet feature-packed iPhone 14 Pro. It's anything but a colossal redesign contrasted with the past model, yet there are still a few significant changes. That worth digging into. The iPhone 14 Pro brings the full arrangement of flagship features that you'd find on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's simply more compact, so it has a more modest screen and battery, as we've seen all through the cell phone industry. This year the new iPhones don't precisely think outside the box, but even so, right off the bat you will see several differences from last year. Most importantly, Apple has replaced the notch cutout for the selfie camera and 3D face recognition with a pill-shaped one called the Dynamic Island, and the new model brings a new 48-megapixel main camera, and you'll see that the three camera bumps are more extensive in diameter. Now, to keep things even, they additionally stick out more from the back panel. Other than that, the design hasn't really changed at all. The flat back is protected by ceramic shield glass, and there's the glossy flat steel frame. The size and weight are basically similar as before too. The matte black color has changed now to be a little darker, however, and there's also another purple color available, of course. The new iPhones are also IP68 evaluated against dust and water up to 6 meters in depth. Just like last year, the display of the iPhone 14 Pro was a 6.1-inch Super Retina XCR OLED. It's sharp at 460 ppi. And there's ceramic shield protection and a 120 Hz refresh rate. It might seem at first glance like nothing has changed here, but there are a couple of upgrades since last year. First, there's the brightness. With the manual slider, we got a limit of 840 nits, about equivalent to the iPhone 13 Pro. However, with auto mode on, it can lift to an incredible 1800 nits, much more than any competitor. The iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max are also the first iPhones to feature an Anyway on display. It essentially keeps the lock screen on with a dim brightness level that adjusts to the ambient light. The 120 Hz refresh rate is something relatively new to the iPhones. It smooths out your swiping and scrolling and can dial down to save energy the entire way to 10 Hz. While the screen is on and presently one can interacting to the display, but presumably the most hyped new feature on this display is the Dynamic Island. Overall, this display is simply good. Content is sharp, vibrant and contrasty, and the color accuracy is great as well, and their support for HDR10 and Dolby Vision 2 for sound. The iPhone 14 Pro has a couple of sound system speakers. With the earpiece serving as the second speaker, they earned a score of good in our loudness test, and the sound quality is superb with first-rate vocals, rich highs and great bass. There are a lot of storage capacity for the iPhone 14 Pro: 128, 256 or 512 gigabytes, or even an entire terabyte, and the interface of the new iPhone generation is the new iOS 16. It's not a groundbreaking update, but there are a couple of changes to a great extent. At the actual heart of the iPhone 14 Pro is a new chipset, the Apple A16 Bionic. It contains a billion more semiconductors than the past A15, and it busted more power-effective CPU core as well. As more memory data transmission for the GPU, there are also upgrades in the Neural Engine and the ISP for computational photography, and there's new display engine behind the Dynamic Island and always-on features and benchmarks. There's very little contrast this time around when it comes to graphics performance, but it's still right there at the top of the chart. And when it comes to the CPU, the iPhone 14 Pro beats the past model, posting some of the best scores available right now. On top of that, the thermals management appears to have improved too. We estimated brilliant stability in our stress tests. The iPhone 14 Pro has a slightly bigger battery limit than last year at 3200 mAh. Battery duration is much the same. However, with a general endurance rating of 86 hours in our exclusive tests, as expected, you don't get a charger in the box. Yet we tested the charging speed utilizing Apple's official 21-watt adapter. We had the option to charge the iPhone 14 Pro from 0 to 60% in 30 minutes. Finally, let's go over the cameras. As I mentioned before, the big excitement is the change from a 12-megapixel sensor in the main camera to a 48-megapixel one with a quad Bayer filter. It also features second general censorship adjustment and full focus pixels other than the main camera. There's the 12-megapixel ultra-wide camera, which has another sensor and lens, and like last year, it has autofocus. The 12-megapixel multiple times telephoto hasn't changed this time around, and there's a lidar scanner for pictures in focus. Onto selfies, and this year Apple has bought OIS and autofocus to the front camera. The 12-megapixel selfies are good. The autofocus work well, and there's a lot of resolved detail, low noise, accurate colors, and wide dynamic range. The iPhone 14 Pro can record 4K video in up to 60 FPS with the Selfie Cam in each of the three back cameras, and all modes features extended dynamic range through Smart HDR. The 4K recordings from the Selfie Camera are brilliant. The subject is sharp and well exposed, and the colors and contrast are brilliant. The damage is very natural looking. The all-back camera shoots magnificent 4K recordings with a lot of resolved detail and natural version with no over-sharpening. There's no noise, the colors are great, and both the contrast and dynamic range are perfect. So does the iPhone 14 Pro. Well, it might look mostly similar to the past model. Other than the notch, there are many different things to like here. Also, you have the more brighter screen, the always-on display, and the new chipset. The main camera's higher resolution means you get time lossless zoom now, and autofocus on the selfie camera is perfect to have compared with the 13 Pro. The thing that matters is in night and day. But the 14 Pro is just a little bit better. That is about what we expected from Apple, and the phone earns our full recommendation. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you on the next one.